Thanks very much, John, and thank you especially for creating this and bringing guys together. I've had the privilege to be able to sometimes be able to organize and bring some men together and have John come and speak, and I got to say that's the real tough masculine work is to be bringing men together. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for a fantastic crew. Wow, you guys are so sorted and organized and on top of things. And thank you for all of you being here today. It's really a privilege to be able to come here and to share my story. So, I heard there was a lot of guys that hadn't been here before, so it must be quite something like coming to this event, all these men. We just heard that was our biggest fear, or the first fear is other men. And then like you're here for like half an hour and some guys ask you to kiss him and stuff like that as well. So I thought I'd introduce myself, tell you a little about myself, and I'm also going to use a couple of pictures so you guys can get an idea of who I am. Sometimes a picture tells you a lot more than just a whole lot of words. So I'm going to do that. So I'm 42 years old. I'm married to Laura Senior. This is my wife here. Several men here were at my wedding here, actually, a little while back. That's great. I have 3 sons. Oh, that way there, yes. I have 3 sons from 16 years to 6 weeks, actually, right now, the latest one. Yeah. I live on a small farm on the Danish countryside. That's the farm. It's 360 years old. It's quite far away. We moved there not so long ago, actually. 2.5 years ago, we moved there. We have sheep. And I've been working professionally with men's work for a long time. There's lots of work to be doing on this old farm. It's good for me and my wife to be doing a work. So that's actually, when I'm not doing men's work, then we're like fixing stuff on our farm. And it's a really, really healthy thing for us to do. I've been working a lot in front of a computer for most of my life. So getting out and like fixing stuff has been good for me. I, together with some men here as well, started Maniphesto and the European Men's Gathering some years ago. This is from our 2nd edition. We were up in Sweden, and that's been probably the most powerful and life-changing journey of my life, is creating men's events, gathering men together, and allowing that process to influence my life as well. And so that's a really big thing in my life, and that's going to take up a lot of my talk today. I'm going to be telling you guys my story. But I'll also tell you, so today I run core groups, like a network of online groups, and I also do vision retreats, small vision retreats out on the countryside with guys who want to do that. You'll see the one picture of me there. I'm in a uniform. I'm a bit of a fighter. That's probably one of my core attributes. I like fighting. It's important for me to channel that in a good direction, because sometimes fighting can be really destructive. So maybe that's been a part of all of this. And then the last thing I'll tell you about my personal bio that's high level. Oh, that's the fighter bit, I guess. I'm an Orthodox Christian. And this is a picture from my wedding. I'm a fully engaged, practicing Orthodox Christian as well. My talk here is actually going to be, this isn't just a picture from my wedding, I'm actually going to be talking a little bit in my talk about marriage as well. And when I first started mentioning this to people, they'd be like, you're going to Berlin with a whole lot of guys from Berlin, and you're going to talk about Christian marriage? Are you crazy? So maybe I am, that's possible, and maybe some of the content of this talk could challenge you a little bit. Maybe some of it you won't like what I have to say, but what I've also really found in these spaces with men, that's how we benefit the most, from hearing points of views that we're not used to, that challenge us, that make us feel a bit uncomfortable, and that allow us to grow a little bit. Maybe not because you have to copy something or just go the same way as someone else, but we think more deeply about what we're doing ourselves as well. Good. So yeah, my approach, as I said, is going to be to tell you about my own personal journey through about 8 years of leadership of men's work. And hopefully I can also communicate something of what I've learned about what I see as the center of men's work, which is how do we grow in masculinity? So for me, when we come together with men, I define masculinity as the thing that emerges and is raised up as the most valuable, the most beautiful, the most true when men are together. So, of course, this shifts over time. Different generations, different societies have different standards for masculinity. But after this weekend together here, then some things will have come through as more important than others. It's a hierarchical thing. It's the emergence of one thing from the many things. So the symbol of masculinity and manhood is, of course, this one. And so that's what I think is. You have the circle, and then you have something going upwards from there as well. And so that's what I've learned from masculinity. There's something about this oneness and this beauty that can happen when men do this well. And of course, sometimes it doesn't go so well. And so that's what we're all trying to learn to do better. And I'm on that journey just as much as you guys are. I don't have all the answers yet. I'm finding my way. And very important in there is sexuality and relationships. And so that's what I'm going to focus my talk on today as well. As I do that, because I'm in Germany, and I also I know you guys like structure, and this is maybe the one valuable thing that I learned when I went to university, is I like making tables. So I'm going to try and make this a table for you guys to describe my journey, my life table. Yeah, there we go. Someone else likes tables. That's good. It gets a lot of clarity. And I'm going to describe my journey in 6 steps that I've taken, where I've not just had new insights. Yeah, I've had some new insights, but I've actually completely tried shifting my entire worldview of what it means to be a man and how I can be a man in a better way, in the best way possible as well. So the journey is going to be described like this. I'm going to start with what I'm going to call a naive, a childish idea of things. And this is all going to be related to sexuality and relationships as well. Yeah, I can do that. Maybe, I think someone's probably going to be struggling with this pillar, though, anyway, so maybe, I apologize, we won't be able to juggle too much. So we have naive. Next one I have is a secular approach to relationships and sexuality, to life, universe. These are describing worldviews. From there, this is my own personal journey. I went to Buddhism. Eastern spirituality, especially from Thailand, and travels there. From there, into Hinduism, and I'd also put in here tantric approach to life. From here, something like a Nietzschean perspective. I'd also put next to Nietzsche, I'd put paganism. There's some very strong correlations there for those of you who are into philosophy. And last of all, I today am an Orthodox Christian. Yes. So that's what I'm going to try and describe that journey for you guys as shortly as possible. And the way I'm going to try and do it is say, what was I lacking to get into each area? So what was the need that I was looking for? Maybe what was the fear? What was I looking for? The next, I'm going to tell a personal story from each of these in my life. Just a short little story. We only have half an hour, guys, so I'm sorry. It's going to be fast, and there's going to be lots of holes here. So yeah, you'll have to look at some of the content that I have online if you want to get more holes filled out. I'm going to tell you why I left as well. And then lastly, right at the end, if I have time for it, I hope I'm going to have time for it, I'm going to try and tell you guys what I keep from me today from each one of these, because obviously there's really valuable learnings from all the experiences that I had in each of these paradigms, each of these worldviews. Good. So does that make sense? Are we on board with that? Oh, I've gone and shifted a slide here. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Everybody's got that. Good, makes sense. So starting with the naive, childish approach, this is the default for all of us. We don't have a lot of our own life experience. We're dependent on what other people do, what they say, what is held up for us really from the culture. A lot of us watch television. A lot of us look at our computer screens. We see the media, we see the news, we see what other people are talking about around us. So you look around, okay, it's something about money, getting strong, getting a good job, having high status in society, getting a house, getting married, getting children, all these kinds of things. This was my first approach to relationships, to sexuality, and to life in general. Like, what am I doing with my life? So what was the thing that I was lacking? I'm going to try and make a page here. I was hoping to have a big board, so that's why we're going to be flipping a little bit. But this is the naive thing. So the thing that I was lacking was a plan. I didn't have a plan of my own. So I looked around me, and I saw what everybody else's plan was. The story that I have was my first girlfriend. I was 17 years old. Deeply in love with her. This was the woman who I wanted to marry and spend the rest of my life with. I was absolutely infatuated with her. My dad loves my mom more than anybody else in the entire world. They have the most beautiful relationship I've ever seen in a couple. And so I had the same feelings with this woman. She was going to be my queen, my princess, my goddess, my everything. And my whole life I was going to grow it around her, protect for her, provide her. She had a bit of a different family situation. I won't go into the details, but it was a constant drama. So this is me bringing her flowers. There's some big drama. I don't understand why she's so angry with me. I want her to be happy. And so I bring her flowers, and maybe it appeases her for a little bit, but the drama happens again. So this is the story that I'm going through. I leave because what happens is at some time someone tells me that she's sleeping with her boss. I've decided to not have sex with her until we're married. She's busy having sex with her boss at her work. So this cracks my whole worldview, and I get red-pilled. I guess you could call it that. If you guys are familiar with that term, I get red-pilled. So that was the end of the secular phase for me. I needed to move on. What was the next phase after this? Well, the thing from my father didn't work, so I went into the next default situation, which is the secular worldview. The secular worldview puts me at the center. It's me and my needs that are most important. So, let's actually just continue here. So we have secular. So what I was lacking is my needs. So it's all about me, and I need to go into a relationship with some woman, and so I do that, and I have lots of different girlfriends, and I have all kinds of different things. At some point, I find a woman, I think, oh, this woman ticks the right boxes, she seems like the right kind of person, and so I get married to her. This is in 2002. I get married to her. We have a great life. I can show you the picture. This is my first wife. They were in Central Park when this picture is taken. We've just been over in the US campaigning for Obama. The first time he was to be elected, I was busy studying political science at this time. Had a really good job already, though, as well. And we were really a couple that we were doing all the right things. But there was something about this relationship that just wasn't working as well. Because what was happening is in the bedroom, things were going worse and worse and worse, steadily. What are the reasons for that? Well, one of the reasons I tried to tell her on this trip. We're sitting in the car, we're heading out on our road trip, and I say to her, I have a porn habit. I watch porn sometimes. And she can't handle that. It's too painful for her. So she closes down, we have an argument, we have a fight. Emotions come out, but they don't get resolved. We don't deal with it. That's the start of the decline of our relationship. I had been closing myself off from masturbating to porn, not looking for intimacy with my wife. I tried to open myself up again, and what happened is I got even more deeply wounded. So what did I do? I closed off even more. So what I needed to do then, the process that was happening, I would call it was zombification. I think this is the result of the secular worldview in a secular relationships is you become a zombie. You have to close yourself off. The pain of existence is too much. It's a purely materialistic worldview that's only focused on me and my needs. Doesn't work in the long term. So I realized this. I need to go on to the next thing. Sorry, we're going so fast here, guys. This is the way it is. I start looking for spirit. This is Buddhism. This is the first place where a lot of us in the West turn these days. When we're still looking for something deeper, something more spiritual, we go to Buddhism, we go to the East. East is where the sun comes from. So I'm looking for spirit. This is my lack. I traveled to Thailand. On my trip to Thailand the first time, I meet this girl here. We drive around on a motorbike. It's beautiful, it's amazing. I feel freedom and openness and connection and all these things for the first time. She introduced me to the first Buddhist teachings that I start studying and reading. Actually, the story I'll tell is my first Vipassana retreat. I didn't do a Vipassana retreat on this trip, but we stopped by a Vipassana center. And I hear about this retreat where you have to be silent for 10 days, not talk to anybody. You're not even allowed to look at someone in the eyes for 10 days. Complete isolation inside yourself and your own thoughts, meditating all the time, every single day. I think that's got to be the most difficult thing to do in the entire world. So it took me a couple of years to get there, but I got there eventually. What happens is that during this Vipassana retreat, it gets tougher and tougher and tougher the longer time that I'm there. I'm built up a whole lot of ideas of who I am and what I am through this worldview here. And as I'm sitting there, they start falling to pieces and breaking apart. And I just feel myself going insane, actually, insane. So by day 7, every time I close my eyes, I just see these monsters in front of my face going, "Bah!" like this at me. So I feel like I'm seriously going insane. I go up to the teacher, and I say to him, like, I'm going insane here. Like, I need to go home. And what does he say to me? He says, sit down, notice your breathing, notice the sensations. The same thing they always say, of course. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to try it one last time. One last time, I'm going to go do it. So I go down, sit down, and what happens then, I sit down for 3 minutes, and suddenly it hits me what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life purpose. It just like feels like a ton of bricks being just emptied onto me. I break down crying right there in the meditation hall. And I'm still doing the exact same thing today. That's what my life purpose is. And it's something about bringing together the separation between head and body that we're experiencing in our lives. And I decided, okay, if I do this for myself, then maybe other people can be inspired and do it themselves as well. So, yeah, I spent the rest of this retreat in ecstasy pretty much, and that was great. And that's what I've been doing at the whole time. But what I see is that the biggest problem is that there's this spiritual bypassing part. And in Buddhism, I don't find a philosophy of sex and relationships which is satisfying for me. The Buddha left his wife and his kids to go and meditate. I wanted to engage in life. I wanted to be the juiciness of it. I wanted to feel it. I didn't want to just have enlightenment. And for me, it just sounded like death. The absence of wanting, that is death. Until I die, I'll be wanting the rest of my life. So that wasn't satisfying for me. So I wanted more life. I wanted more chaos. I wanted more experience. I wanted to dive into reality instead of withdrawing myself from it. And going into Gnosticism is basically the way I saw it, spiritual bypassing. So that was what I wanted. I wanted more life, chaos, you could also say it. That's what I went into Hinduism and Tantra to get. So this was a picture from Copenhagen, where I probably spent about a year in total, something like that, on several visits. Also met several guys in this room on my travels over there. Also done lots of other things as well. Story that I'll tell you is that there was the school called Agama Yoga. You've already actually heard about it earlier today, where there was this like really hot woman who was the most beautiful teacher in the entire place. I think, wow, I want that woman. So I go up to her and I say, hey, do you want to meet and have a talk? She says, yes. Of course, I want to have sex with her. But when we then meet and have this chat, then after a bit of a conversation, we decide, hey, instead of just having sex, I just wanted to have that experience, then why don't we try and teach some contact improvisation dance together? So I was like, okay, yeah, let's try that. That was what our conversation led to. And so looking back at that, it was very clear what we were doing is the thing we were talking about all the time but weren't really doing is we were containing our sexual energy, creating a boundary, and then channeling it into something creative and beautiful that could contribute something to other people, such as their creative expression. That's what we were doing. So this was the story of Copenhagen. This was in 2014. And that was beautiful and great, and it worked very, very well. Of course, what happened is we fell more and more in love with each other, the two of us as well, but there was no kind of real admission of this, so when we eventually, like smoked some weed together and did something, whatever, then like things went very chaotic as well. So this all kind of broke down eventually, and so what happened is, and this is the reason why I left, was this was just leading me to more fragmentation. I was in a religion where it's a polytheistic religion where you have these like demon gods of Kali like that are like slaying men and stuff like that. Really intense and crazy and beautiful. Reflects a part of life to us as well, but we were worshiping them actually as well. So my life was fragmenting. I was actually going into insanity and bipolarity. That's what I can see today. I didn't see it obviously that time so well as well. Yes? So what did I need? Well, okay, this was really intense, all the fragmentation. I needed a more masculine approach. Drop the pen as I say masculine approach. There we go. So this is where I go into start hearing about Nietzsche, meet some of the men who I've been doing the most powerful men's work I've been doing, and looking at paganism. This is not paganism where we're like beating drums and that so much, but just like the philosophical underpinnings of looking at a reality of what we call slave mentality that a lot of us are living under without really taking an active position on our own lives as well. So the story I'll tell is the creation of Maniphesto. We started as a group of, that wasn't the picture I was going for? No, sorry, okay. Well, the picture that I was looking for was that big one with the, I was doing a lot of rock climbing at this time as well, by the way. Yeah, we invited guys from our network. We decided, hey, we want to be masculine men. How do we do that? How do we do that better? How do we understand our role in society? How do we take responsibility for ourselves? We created these men's network and research weekends where we locked ourselves up with guys from our network. And from that, we wrote a manifesto. That's where the name Maniphesto comes from. And then we put that out online, and a whole lot of people were inspired by it. And that's what created the first Nordic Men's Gathering in 2017. And when I had this event, I think we had about 130 guys coming the first year. And it was just the most empowering, beautiful event. Instead of being inside of a big city, we're far off in the countryside. We slept together. We did really intense workshops together. And we connected at a far deeper level than a lot of us have experienced. So I was like the hero of this event. It was all kind of just happening around me. I realized now I wasn't in control at all. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was confused as every single other man there. But I felt incredibly powerful and like the center of this whole thing happening. And so what happened is, while we were at this event center, there was some staff, and some of the staff were women. And then there was one girl in this center who was just like really beautiful, and I was attracted to her. And so at the end of the event, I saw her. There was a sauna. We went into the sauna, and I said to her, "Come with me to my room." She followed me to my room. No need for seduction when you're leading as a man. You can just take. And we had the most intense, beautiful. We had sex the whole night. I didn't sleep the whole night. We had sex the entire night. It was beautiful and amazing and intense. And then she goes off and she used to go and work the next day, and I go home again, and then like I'm thinking like, wow, this was the most powerful experience, and like it feels like some kind of synchronistic thing that I met this woman, and so I wait for her to contact me. And she doesn't contact me. And then I start reflecting about like, what am I doing with my life? And where is this need coming from that I constantly need to be taking new women to bed all the time and getting my feeling of like being a man by the amount of women, the number of women that are willing to go to bed with me as well. And so I start questioning this and thinking about it very, very seriously. And I noticed that while there's a sense of being able to gather something more and create a hierarchy, my inner hierarchy is even more fragmented, even more broken down, even more empty, even more lonely. Of being in the center of this whole, at that point we're like, wow, this is the men's movement 2.0, like this is going to be happening. I'm leading it. I'm feeling lonely, alone, yeah. So I start looking for something much more dependable, much more stable, much more stronger. And this is where I start looking into the tradition of my own father, my own grandfather, my great-grandfather, my society, everything that formed everything that's around me today, the foundation of it, the roots of it, which is Christianity. And what I find is there's lots and lots of layers of Christianity, but as I dig further and further into it, then I find that there's a lot of good stuff in there. And actually all the things that were true in all of these things, because obviously there's a lot of truth in all these areas, all those things were actually incorporated. And yeah, some people today, of course, are taking them out, but there's a lot of that is still present. So the story that I'll tell is when I married my wife. When I had this insight that maybe I need to do something about this, I told my girlfriend at the time, we need to be celibate for a little while. Because I realized like I'm spreading my sexual energy. Someone yesterday used the word like a street dog going around and a little bit here and a little bit here. I thought that was pretty dirty, but then I realized like that's what I was doing. I was actually just like putting my most sacred personal energy, a little bit with this person here, a little bit with this person over here. I didn't really know who they were, didn't know anything about them. That's what I was doing, like a street dog. And so I said to her, we need to be celibate. And I actually then said, well, we need to like be really apart from each other, not talk to each other. And I didn't feel that was enough, so I actually had to move to a different part of the country. And I went to another part of the country for a whole year pretty much. And I really thought about what I want to do with my life. I stopped everything else that I was doing. I thought, what kind of a man do I want to be when I'm 60, when I'm 70? What do I want to impart to my boys, my children? And eventually I came to the conclusion, well, this is a woman that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And so I went back to her. I said to her, we're getting married next month. 1 month from now, we're going to get married. Before I did that, I actually went to her dad. And I said to her dad, may I marry your daughter? He said, yes, please. I went to our priest, and I said, may I marry Laura Xenia? He said, yes, absolutely. I actually went to my son, and I said to he was 13, 12 at that time. And I said to him, I'm thinking of marrying Laura. And her dad and our priest have given their blessing. And he looked at me and said, Dad, I give you my blessing as well. That was the most beautiful thing that happened. So yeah, I gave her 1 month's warning. I said, now we're getting married. I invited everyone before she even knew that it was going to be happening. And we got the biggest cathedral that we could find in Copenhagen, and we had a wedding. And that evening, I took her home, and we had been celibate for this entire period from when we had broken up. And we then went home, and that night she fell pregnant. And 9 months later, our first son was born, and now 6 weeks later, our second son was born. So, yeah, that was the story of my journey. Now I'm here to the present day, standing here in front of you guys. And so, I don't know how much time I have left. 5 minutes, thank you very much. If I had to put just, you know what, I'm actually going to use the last time to just say, what is it that I take out of all these things here? Because I think that's what I'd like to say. There's a lot of other things I could be saying. From this naivety, what I take with me today is trust in life. You need to be able to let go of control and trust in life. There's something bigger that's holding you. You need to really figure out what that bigger thing is that you're putting your faith in. But if you don't put your faith in something, then you're going to be falling flat. You can put your faith in science and other men and your men's group, whatever it is, but you need to put your faith in something and trust, because that's how we're empowered to act. From the secular worldview, earn a lot of money there. That's where we can get rich. You need to make sure that you keep your heart orientated towards something else. But secularism is focused on materialism. Materialism, potentiality is money. That's where we earn money. So we need to do it. We need to be engaged in the world. We can't avoid it. We can't bypass it. From Buddhism, I realized this need of embodiment, of connecting ourselves, of re-stitching ourselves together again, and doing it in myself, and the need for continually doing it as well. From the Hindu tantric philosophy, devotion. Human beings are the worshipping being. Just look at a football team. We're all religious. We're essentially religious. We just engage in, like, if it's climate change religion, or we essentially engage in religious activity, in worshipping of something. There has to be something that's higher at the pyramid. If you don't know what the top of your pyramid is, it's something unconscious. You don't actually know what it is. It's probably your insecurities or something like that. So you need to know what's at the top of the pyramid. What am I actually worshipping with my life? From Nietzsche and paganism, this is a theological discussion, but I actually believe that these two things are integrated into each other. And if you look at all the church fathers, then there wasn't the same break that the Puritans have had in Protestantism today. But this is Stoicism. Stoicism is a very, very powerful philosophy that I really recommend looking at if you want to grow in your masculinity. Very, very strong. A necessary element for men today. And then, yeah, finally, what do I get from Orthodox Christianity? I get an anthropology and a cosmology. So I know what the universe is, and I know what I am, and I know what mankind is as well. And everything that I do, I act from that, but I'm never in doubt. And so for me, it's a question of, like, allowing that to be expressed without me trying to control it too much, even though I'm not so good at it. So yeah, I think my time's running. We have one hand up, so let's hear from that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great, great question. So the question was, lots of different stuff. What's the one thing? And that's what I was actually saying at the end, like, find the one thing. So I'd say the one thing is surround yourself with other men who challenge you, inspire you, and support you, and that are able to continue to go at each other and help each other, even when things get difficult. And look for those guys that you can build strong bonds of brotherhood with, and search for truth. And dare to deal with the holy cows and the difficult things as well. Strong bonds of brotherhood and connection with other men. Nothing will change your life as much as that can do. Look for challenge. Look for inspiration. Look for support. You're there to build each other up. So do that in your local groups. I think it's pretty much where Mr. Marshall ended as well. Form a group if you don't have one as well. I would say don't sit and talk about your emotions. Try and do something valuable and good for the world. Maybe you need to talk about your emotions a little bit first. But that stuff will come up. I promise you. As soon as you try and do something good and valuable, all your shit's going to come up and all the problems are going to come up. Then you deal with them there. Because otherwise it just becomes this very feminist, not feminist, sorry, feminine going around in circles if you're just talking about emotions. Like, you'll see guys just continue sitting in the same stuff and wallowing in it for years. Good. Do we have time for one more question? Yeah, great.
And how is all your experience linked to the topic of your, to the headline of your presentation?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, so good. So the question was, what about the topic, Kampfkraft? So yeah, that was in the beginning. This short time, so I left it out. I'm a fighter. So like, I like fighting with other guys, but we fight with fair play. And so we do it in love. We fight in love. And we do it to build each other up. But don't deny that masculine spirit in yourself. It's going to be clumsy when you start experiencing it and start allowing it to come out. You know, when you get into an argument with your wife, then don't just retreat. So it's probably just me, and I'm sorry, and I know it's such a really, and I'm also just in a bad, and my mother, and don't do that. You know, be a man, and be around other men who dare to be men as well. Thank you very much.